So much for staying on. I am Pius Kojobaka. Now, the International Monetary Fund team is in town to engage government about its policies and economic direction. My colleague George Yafri has been following up on this meeting and joins me in studio for some conversation on this. Thanks so much, George, for joining me on Business Live. First off, tell us the purpose for this meeting.
So one would ask whether this is a staff review visit, one would ask whether it's a program review visit. No. What we are picking up from the fund is that anytime a program runs into another administration or political party taking over, they do this management engagement with the new administration on what is their economic program, what is their economic policy, and how that would impact on the program. So you have the mission chief and also the director of the fund in town. They were in town yesterday. That they should be ending this meeting by this weekend or Monday, basically to understand the new economic direction of that new administration and how that could impact on the program going forward. So this is not a staff mission visit, this is not a program review visit, but rather a more of a management team visit, which the fund would always do when a new administration takes over, and that would impact on the program completion and the target as well.
All right, so what have you picked up so far from the engagement?
I mean, what we've picked up is that things are moving well. Basically, it is more of information sharing and briefing. But again, what this will mean is that it could again form the grounds or impact, if I can use the expression about the grounds of government proposals that they actually want to move for renegotiation of the program. It means that the fund now has a better understanding of this government economic program. Now, how will that also impact the program going forward? Don't forget that by 2028, we should bring the debt to a certain levels. Now, if indeed they are going to accept the program being reviewed, what will be the implications of the country's debt stock or reducing to sustainable levels at the end of a particular year? So this is more of getting more info. I believe that the government, also the current administration, will also more of want to look for an opportunity to test the waters in terms of this whole idea about trying to extend the program, renegotiate the program and all that. So what we picked up, that things are moving well in terms of the information gathering in the direction of the economy and how that will impact on the IMF program.
And talking about the review of the program, like the current administration is proposing, what has the IMF been saying about it? And of course, the latest push by the Minister of Finance to solicit for more.
So let's first start with the push to renegotiate the program. The fund has argued that whatever negotiations that this administration wants to push should be in line with the broad framework of the program. That is in how they work to reduce our debts to sustainable levels. So if you want more borrowings, if you want to cut down on revenue, how will that impact on the broader program? And that might be a challenge. So they've argued that they are open for program review, but it should be within the broader framework of the program. That is, how do you reduce your debt to sustainable levels? And also, how do you raise more revenue? If you are not prepared to raise more revenue, then you have to cut down on your expenditure. Now, if you cut down on expenditure, it has implications as well on completion of some, what you call capital programs as well. And looking at how our budget is also structured as well.
Right.
There's certain critical funding that you cannot cut. So it might be a quite interesting negotiation with respect to the posture of this administration and what they want to do.
And talking about the proposal by the finance minister designate, what has the IMF? Well,
the IMF is saying that it is still early days here. They've heard it. There hasn't been any formal communications to them, but it appears that they could be testing the waters during this engagement, this management team visit that the fund is having with the government about if you want to extend the program, if you want more money, how would that impact on the current program?
Right.
And whether even there's a window for more money under this current program with the IMF or not.
All right, thank you very much, George. Keep monitoring that space for us, and of course, we shall come to you as and when we need more clarification. And one longer on the IMF matter, because Finance Minister designate Dr. K. Olatufosin has revealed that he plans on embarking on some expenditure cuts this year to help contain inflation. He disclosed this to reporters after he was nominated by President John Mahama as Finance Minister. George filed this report.
The finance minister designate noted that the move has been influenced by what he describes as waste in the system and how that impacts on government's finances. That is why he plans moving fast to deal with this challenge, which will also impact on the high budget deficit. The finance minister designate also maintained that the move will go a long way to reduce inflation for this year. The Bank of Ghana is projecting that inflation will reduce significantly for 2025 and will hit that single-digit target by the first quarter of next year. The minister also revealed to reporters that government is planning to resume domestic bond issuance from the middle of this year as it plans to raise more funds to help in resetting the economy.
Let's expand the conversation further. Joining us via Zoom to do that is economist Professor Lord Mensah. Thanks so much, sir, for agreeing to speak to us here on Business Live. Your initial thoughts about the presence of the IMF mission team who are in town to engage government about policies and, of course, economic directions?
Of course, I mean, it is expected. Once an administration, changes hands, it is expected that IMF will come and engage the new administration. So I'm not surprised to see them around. And one will say, during the transition, I think they may have no, exactly what to do with the new administration and going forward what they intend to do. So for administrative purposes, it demands that, they will be in the country to engage the new administration because the focus when it comes to governance is going to change. We have a new government that is promising Ghanaians of about 60 ministers, and how it will reflect on the expenditure lines of the government, very, very important. Because IMF, one of their missions is to make sure they control, help control countries, fiscal, situations. So from where I sit, it demands that they will be here and then get in tune with the new administration's focus when it comes to, economic management.
All right, let's talk to this matter. We are following up, and we understand the finance minister designate plans to embark on some expenditure cuts this year to help contain inflation, and we are wondering whether that is feasible.
Yeah, it is feasible in a sense that if you look at what has been happening in the past under the same IMF program, I can tell you that we're dealing with over 100 ministers and different, agencies. And if you look at the budget lines, especially when you pick one of the appropriations lines that we have over the past years, you'll get to know that some allocations we were doing in the past, they were not yielding the necessary economic outputs that, is expected. And so having a new administration that is prepared to cut down expenditure, of course, is a way of reducing the budget deficit within the frame of the IMF program. And once you cut down expenditure and you're able to allocate the little that you have efficiently, it tends to control and shape in inflation very well.
And which areas do you believe can be looked at? Looking at the rigid nature of our budget, wouldn't that make it difficult?
Well, I don't see it to be difficult because it has to do with reallocations and overly identifying where exactly you're supposed to spend to control inflation. If you pick, Ghana Statistical Service data, clearly there's an indication that food inflation is one of the problems. It's unfortunate in the past we've been spending on planting for food and jobs, but it hasn't yielded the necessary, results that is expected by reducing food prices. So from where I sit, if the new administration is coming in force and they want to allocate, resources into agriculture, certainly targeting certain foodstuffs, will be very, very important in controlling inflation.
And finally, the minister designate has also disclosed that he will look at seeking some funding from the IMF and, of course, a possible program extension. And is that prudent?
Yeah, I think we may have to, situate it as far as our economy is concerned, right now. Over the past years, if you look at the economic indicators, they seem to be tamed when we have IMF engagement. And that is exactly what we are witnessing now. And so if the current administration want to extend it, I will not be surprised. But the only thing is that IMF money is still, accumulation of debt. The only difference is that it's a soft kind of debt. And if the minister thinks, staying with IMF or by extending the program will help us shaping the economy being conserved over a certain period to control our debt levels, I believe that it will be the right thing to do.
Professor Lord Mensah, thanks so much for your input this very moment. We truly appreciate it. Let's stay a while longer on the economy because the Chief Executive of Daylex Finance, Joe Jackson, has maintained that President John Mahama's first budget will prove whether he is committed to supporting the private sector. The President, in his inaugural speech, appealed to private businesses to come on board to help reset the economy. But speaking on PM Express Business Edition, Mr. Jackson noted that the budget will deal with all the doubts about the President's posturing.
On the button, exactly. That is going to be the first test. Because anyway, it's the budget, that's the instrument that the government is going to use. We're going to see where the taxes are going. We're going to see what new taxes are going to be introduced or taxes that are going to be taken out. We're going to see a measure of what reliefs that they are going to give to innovation, to growth. What measure of reliefs they're going to give to companies that have targeted youth employment. Part of the promise says we will target the industries that engage with the youth. We are under an IMF program. The good thing is that there's a strong indication that there will be some renegotiation to give the people of Ghana some relief. We expect that the reliefs will be, whatever reliefs will be obtained, it is the private sector that will be prioritized, because it is the private sector that will really animate the 24-hour economy. It is the private sector that will provide the jobs that the people of Ghana desire. So we expect that within the context of how dire the public purses, within the context of an IMF program, within the context of renegotiating the IMF program, the private sector will be prioritized so that we can deliver the innovation, the growth, the jobs that this economy requires.
Finance professor at Andrews University, Williams Pipra, is backing calls for the Mahama government to seek extra funding from the International Monetary Fund to fast-track economic recovery. He's been speaking to Joy Business.
If you remember, sometime in July 2023, I mentioned that the 3-year program, the IMF program, was not enough to solve Ghana's problem. Looking at the extent of debt distress that we were in, we were above 100% in terms of debt to GDP. To solve such a challenge, you need about 5 to 7 years. So if you ask me, it's in the right direction to seek about 2 years extension to the program, and that will unlock concessionary loans from IMF and the bilateral institutions to help the Ghanaian agenda. And then also, you notice that the NDC in their manifesto, they have a major plan, which they call it the big push, a 10 billion developmental agenda. This must find its way into the IMF program. So a review and then an extension of that program is in line, and then the NDC will be able to find a way to incorporate the big push agenda, which focuses on infrastructural development. And then they can be able to get some funding additional funding from the World Bank, from IMF themselves, and then other, let's say, European Union, on the concessionary loan, just focusing on developmental agenda. So that is the way to go, and I think that is in the right direction.
You're still watching Business Live. We have more stories for you shortly. Welcome back to Business Live. The Association of Ghana Industries has revealed that the demand for their goods and other manufactured items have picked up strongly from the last quarter of 2024. This is coming on the back of significant challenges hit the sector over the past 2 years. Chief Executive of the Association of Ghana Industries, Seth Chumakwabwa, showed that things have turned around for the sector.
going on, except that we want to improve, we want to upscale, we want to do business, we want to expand, we want to venture into other areas, we want to go to other markets and all that. So there's always room and a bigger scope of business that we can do. And therefore, if a president comes in and say, we are open for business, my understanding of it is that whatever you are doing, can we upscale? Can we do more of it? Can we venture into more areas? But then saying so is one thing, and being able to achieve that is another. And achieving it requires a whole lot of things. Those deep discussions we are going to go into it with government itself, with the various ministers that will be appointed. But the critical thing is that you are encouraging businesses to come and do more business. And here we are not really looking at foreign direct investment or foreign businesses, it's local businesses as well. And that's where we have to sit down and say, what do we do to make sure that businesses can thrive?
And when we draw the line again between, deliberately helping local industries and also not shutting the door to the FDI, because it's always a big challenge for managers of the economy.
I don't think it's that big a challenge because you have laws, you have policies that you can actually put in place. In the petroleum industry, they've set up a local content committee. And they're always looking at specific businesses that is not so much sophisticated to do. It doesn't require so much capital. It doesn't require any special expertise. You can reserve it for local businesses and still generate competition amongst them. There are certain products in the Ghanaian environment that you can really protect. And sometimes, I work with manufacturers a lot. And I can tell you that sometimes it's not so much the question of competition. It is the fairness in the trade area. There are people who are producing here. You go to the market and there's influx of these products coming into the market. And if you look at the prices at which they are selling it, they're actually selling below cost. So there's no way the local producer can compete. And that is an unfair trading. So we think that even if you're able to police the borders.
The Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, is worried over Ghana's involvement in numerous arbitration cases against oil and gas companies operating in the country. According to PIAC, the situation could send a bad signal to investors seeking to enter Ghana's oil and gas industry. Speaking to Joy Business on the recent arbitration between Talo and Ghana Revenue Authority, as well as the ENI Ifina Sankofa Unitization Directive, Chairman of PIAC, Constantine Kujoji, said the development is setting a bad precedent for Ghana.
There was also some in terms of that as against the directive from the ministry, and the companies were not in favor of that. So they went into arbitration, and the award is to the effect that the manner in which the unitization was authorized was not proper. Now, why am I giving you these details? If these things happen, they are not good for our investors. They will say, how you treat them is not fair, and it drives away investment. And we are a petroleum revenue management committee. If you drive the goods away, you will never get the feathers. So it is important that you attract the goods. You have to attract them. So we think that it's not too good for our image as a country. And next time when we are doing these things, we must be careful. So it's something that PIAC noted, that the outcome of the arbitration was not favorable.
That's it for Business Live for today. I am Pius Kojo Baka. For more stories, do log on to myjoyonline.com/business. Beyond the Numbers is next.